If you're a Muslim, you know the Islamic year starts with the month of Muharram. But have you ever wondered why? Why not the month the Prophet was born, or when he received the first message from God? Well, the answer is more than just a history fact. It's a really interesting story about a big problem that helped shape the identity of Muslims forever. This is the story of how the leader, Umar, and his friends made a choice that would define how we think about time. Let's go back in time. It's about 16 or 17 years after the Hijrah, when the Prophet moved from Makkah to Medina. The second leader, Caliph Umar, was in charge of a community that was growing very fast. With all this growth, a new problem popped up, keeping track of everything. Governors in faraway places would send letters to the main city, Medina. One famous story says a letter came that mentioned a payment was due in the month of Shaban. But the question was, which Shaban? The one that just happened, or the Shaban of next year? It was confusing. Without numbers for the years, contracts were unclear, and historical records were a mess. Before Islam, Arabs would often name years after big events, like the Year of the Elephant. But that system couldn't work for a growing community. Caliph Umar knew they needed their own calendar. So, he gathered his most trusted friends to figure it out. The big question they had to answer was, where does our story as a community begin? What event should be year one for all Muslims? A few big ideas were discussed. Some people suggested the year the Prophet Muhammad was born. It was a happy time and a clear starting point. But others felt that his life before becoming a prophet wasn't what defined the Muslim community. Another idea was to start with the first revelation from God, the moment Islam's message began. But it was hard to know the exact date for that. Someone even suggested the year of the Prophet's death. This was the end of one chapter and the start of another, but that idea just didn't feel right. It was a time of great sadness. The leaders felt the calendar should start with hope, not with sorrow. Then, an idea came up that everyone could agree on. Many, including Ali ibn Abi Talib, suggested the Hijrah, the big move from Makkah to Medina. This, they agreed, was the real turning point. It wasn't just a trip. It was the moment that changed everything, from being persecuted to being safe. Everyone started to agree. This was the right choice. Okay, so they picked the year. But which month should start the year? The Prophet's journey ended when he arrived in Medina in the month of Rabi al-Awwal. So, that was an option. Others suggested Ramadan, the month of the Quran. This is when Uthman ibn Affan offered a very smart solution. He suggested they just stick to the order of months that the Arabs had always used, which started with Muharram. And this made perfect sense. The most spiritual time of the Islamic year is the Hajj pilgrimage, which happens in the last month, Dhul Hijjah. Muharram is the very next month. It feels like a fresh start. A clean page right after the pilgrimage is over. It was the perfect time to begin again. The decision was made, the calendar would start with the year of the Hijrah, and the first month would be Muharram. Think about what that choice shows us. The early Muslims chose not to base their calendar on the birth or death of one person, not even their beloved Prophet. Instead, they chose an event that involved a sacrifice from the entire community, a journey they all made for their faith. The Hijri calendar isn't about one person, it's about a whole community. And by choosing Muharram, they picked a month that was already one of the 4 special, sacred months in Islam when fighting was not allowed. It begins the year with a feeling of peace and holiness. So, the Islamic calendar isn't just for tracking dates, it's a statement about identity. So, the next time you see the Islamic New Year being celebrated, remember the story behind it. It's not just about changing the calendar. It's a story of good leadership, powerful meaning, and the birth of a community that was defined by its shared journey to a new beginning. This calendar connects over 1 billion Muslims today, not just to a date, but to a key moment in their shared history. If you found this piece of our history as interesting as I do, please consider liking and subscribing for more stories like this. And share it with anyone you think might like it. May your year be filled with blessings.